in the beginning, there was nothing. Then that nothing exploded, and all of a sudden there were galaxies, stars, planets, animals, dogs, cats, feminists. Then came humans, which brought about Landcruisers. Now, Landcruisers are the most interesting species to date. They command the money of a luxury vehicle without any of the luxury vehicle things. They do, however, enable things like this. 3, 2, 1. Now, as we all know, a Landcruiser is a luxury vehicle from the factory, which is why when you buy it, you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars getting it to the state where it's actually how it should have been. And today's task relies on the fact that I've looked at lots of pictures on Google and ordered stuff with my fingers crossed with the hope that Landcruiser has lazy engineers. So today, I will be fitting this. Delightful. Here's why.
Hey guys, Chris Fix here.
So this is the standard Landcruiser steering wheel. Pretty bland, right? And contrary to popular beliefs, even though I've owned a Navara in the past, I do not drive like this. Instead, I tend to keep my hand here, which opens the doors to some accidental off-road problems, as seen here. Now the hope is, aside from looking fully sick and hectic, is that my hands will hit the buttons instead of the steering wheel, to save embarrassing video footage. Now the first part of this operation is to remove the cruise control, because I've already got cruise control in there and it's mounted to the stalk rather than the steering wheel itself. And I think having two cruise controls would make this a little bit too much like Pimp My Ride. So I'm going to take this apart and see if it's actually worth doing this. But I'm guessing the fact that you're seeing this video, it's probably worth it. So now the airbag should come off. And maybe with one hand, I'll be able to pop this. And I was going to say, hope that it doesn't explode in my face. And luckily, it didn't. Better than a face full of steering wheel. And that's about it. I'm going to make sure I don't turn this clock spring because I'd rather not break it, even though I get the feeling I'm going to need another one. Now the reason I think I need another clock spring is because of this connector. This one's obviously for the airbag, but this is for the horn switch, as well as any steering wheel buttons you might have. And as you can see, there's only one wire coming off. And there's also only one pin in there. So So what this means is that my steering wheel buttons are not going to do anything. But that'll be a job for another day. Also, make sure your steering wheel's straight before you do something like this. It saves troubles later. Now what I was hoping is when I took out the cruise control, I might have been able to swap this out, relying mostly on Toyota lazy engineering once again. But I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. And definitely not, as they're pretty different. So I'm just going to have to make do with this thing with a weird little hole in it. I'll have to make sure that I don't stick my finger in while I drive, tempting as it may be. Now it's actually pretty challenging holding a camera while you're doing all this. So you're going to have to make do with genitalia point of view. So here's where the main problem lies. This little wiring loom thing here is for each side of your steering wheel buttons, as well as the very blurry horn. And that's a different connector to what's on the clock spring. Now all this means is for now I'm going to have to use the factory one, so I can still use the horn, but it means that none of these buttons are going to work. Now this is strange for me, because behind here is all the wiring for the steering wheel controls, which leads me to believe that the wiring must be in place to plug into a clock spring that can cope with steering wheel controls. So why, Toyota, did you put a clock spring that does not have steering wheel control? But then that opens a whole new kettle of fish as to why did you make such an expensive vehicle that doesn't have any luxuries whatsoever, when this exists on your other vehicles. Anyway, there's more time for bitterness later. That's 50 Newton meters for anyone playing at home. It's far from an exact science. It took me about 5 seconds to Google this, but it's better than using ugga-duggers. I guess that's one use for a steering lock. So for now, I'm going to hide this out of the way, because it's not connected to anything. Probably put it in these little clips here. I'll put the factory plug back in. And then go and get the airbag. Now the last thing to do is connect my batteries up. And this is the last chance for explosion, I guess. So once I do this, and nothing's blown up, then I can consider this a success for now. So I'm not particularly unsatisfied with that. It's the same sort of dimensions as the original one. And I think it's leather, so it's going to be a bit more nicer than the other one. Now the only issue are all these buttons not doing anything, being for cosmetic reasons only. But at least now, if I'm driving somewhere and I hit a bump, it's not going to make me accidentally press the button in the middle. Now I've done a little bit of research about clock springs that'll fit, and as far as I know, something off a Hilux will do something similar. But I'll have to look into that a bit more. I also don't hold particularly high hopes for this, and I'll probably end up having to make another wiring loom in the future. So we can consider this video to be continued. However, I have a spare airbag that I don't need anymore. Whatever would I do with this? Let me introduce Karen. This is Karen. And this is an airbag. And this is Karen on the airbag.
Looks like we're blasting off again!
Karen was discovered 2 streets away, cold and hungry. She was recovered and returned home.